Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shred's Takes. I'm Mike Schretter. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you follow me on Shred's Takes podcast on Instagram and Shred's Takes on TikTok for more clips and stuff like that. But this episode is going to do two things. I'm going to use that website that I broke down plays with and explain the different things that Boston has done successfully and how the Heat can combat it. But to start off the show right now, I'm going to give you my four big takeaways from Boston's miraculous turnaround. I would say it that way. They've winning the last two games and really making a huge difference so far in the series. Now putting all the pressure on Miami. First big thing I want to go into is 4 out of the 5 starters for Boston scored in double figures. I think they all scored over 20 points. Derek White led the charge with 24 points, 6 of 8 from 3. So Miami only had 2 guys who did that, and that again, that's going to matter. What the others do in this series is going to dictate the rest of the series. Boston is the more talented team, and they have proven that in the last 2 games. Second biggest thing is 3-point shooting. I think that comes a lot from ball movement, which I'll break down in just a minute, how they were able to get those threes off. But it was 41% for Boston, way more made threes, and 39% for Miami. Miami only made 9 threes. Boston, just take a look at my notes right now here. Boston made 16 threes. So that's a huge takeaway there. Again, that's a difference of 48 versus 27 points in terms of threes, right? That goes to point number 3, which is turnovers. Miami had 16 turnovers, Boston had 9. I said whoever wins this turnover battle is going to win the series. And so for the last 2 games, it's been Boston who's won the turnover battle. And the last thing, I've been looking at this matchup all series and said whoever wins this matchup, it's going to bode well for that team. And Al Horford has outplayed Bam Adebayo for 2 straight games. He has outplayed him for 2 straight games. He outplayed him in game 4 where he had 12 points and 6 rebounds, and Bam Adebayo only had 10 points. And last night, even though Bam had 18 points, he had 6 turnovers. He had 8 rebounds. Al Horford gave you 6 points. I think it was 6 or 8 points. He gave you 11 rebounds, and he forced those 6 turnovers. He won that matchup. He did what his job was supposed to. He had an impact in the game. So those things matter really in a big deal. Now, what I want to do now is I want to go through the plays that I have drawn up for you guys, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how Boston has guarded the Heat offense and what forced a lot of turnovers for Miami. Then I'm going to show Boston's transition, Boston's ball movement, and then what way the offensive set that the Heat can use that worked successfully last night that can be used to combat the Boston defense. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll get into that. So we will go here. We will share the screen, and we'll get into it. Okay, great. So let's start with the first play, which is the Heat offense. So what the Heat like to do is the Heat like to start off by always throwing it to the top to Bam Adebayo, allow him to play from the top and kind of like a point action. Point action is pretty much where you have like a split screen action on one side, whereas Strus comes up, right? And then you play through the big on the top, right? So then what's going to happen is he's going to pass that to Strus. Jimmy Butler sets an up screen for Bam. This is a play to get Bam a post up. But again, it's usually all out of this set. And then this is the first play of the game where Bam turned the ball over, by the way. And so Bam comes down, and he's looking to get an isolated post up here, right? And then they have Jimmy Butler pop to the top. I have the 4 spot. Jimmy Butler plays the 3, obviously, but it's a different story. Then they space the court. So you see, these are the Boston. This is the Boston defense right here. So that's this guy right here, X2. That's Marcus Smart. The reason why he got a steal is because Jimmy Butler is not a 3-point shooter, really. Like, he can hit it, but that's not really his strength. So they play off of him, and they go and double Bam. And when he tries to dribble through, it's a turnover, right? And even though in playoffs it shows him getting through, that's where the turnover happened, because I'm going to step it back here for a second here. See where he has to dribble through, right? Al Horford's is allowing him to go middle instead of baseline, where Bam likes to go baseline a lot, right? And then all Marcus Smart is doing here is helping down because Jimmy Butler's not a shooter, right? So it's a really effective play. And then that allows Boston to get a steal and go out in transition, right? So that is something that ways to combat that for the Heat, you need to put a shooter there. You need to put a Caleb Martin there. You need to put a Kevin Love. You need to put a Duncan Robinson in this spot, because then they can't help so much off of the shooter, right? Maybe putting Jimmy Butler in the corner and having him maybe back cut on the post up, because this guy might be too occupied about what's going on up here. is going to be more important, right? That's something that's going to have to change a little bit here for Miami. But overall, that was their defensive game plan. It wasn't just for that. Like whenever Bam caught the ball in the middle, there were a lot of times just swarming defenses, right? But that was one play in particular where they were able to get a steal and be effective. So that was the first thing I wanted to show. The second thing I want to show is Boston's transition. Why was their transition so effective? Well, they got turnovers, right? They forced a lot of turnovers, but they also ran really effective transition offense, right? So Jaylen Brown last night did this really well. He would run ahead of the pack and he would cut through to see if he had an opportunity to get a layup here, driving the basket, right? So he would do that. And from there, what they would do is he would cut through, right? They would space the court. They would have Horford running to the left wing. They have Derek White running to the right wing. Smart would already be down. Tatum drives here. He gets picked up. He swings it to Horford, who swings it over to Marcus Smart. And this is when that hit big three to put them up 15-5 in the first quarter. That was how they ran that offense, right? And it's effective because, again, what's been Boston's problem in a lot of these games? Ball movement, right? And you see it's the dribble action here. It's a good off-ball cut movement there. It's a pass here to a one more, right? That's how you beat the defense. You beat it through dribble penetration, then the quick pass, right? They did a really good job of that. So that's play number 2. Play number 3, I want to show Boston's ball movement. I want to show it from a drawn-up standpoint so people understand exactly what I'm talking about. So what they do here is they enter the ball into the mid-post of Tatum. Horford tries to cut from behind. He doesn't get it. He kicks it out to the corner, and you can't really help a whole lot. And then they help there, so he swings it back to Horford. He swings it right back to Jaylen Brown. Tatum spaces out to allow Brown to drive. Brown drives. He passes it over to the shooter, which is, Derek White or Smart, and then pass it. That would be Smart up to White, and that's a shot, right? So let's look at that one more time. So how they do it, right? They space out Horford. They double here, so that allows the shot to be open there. This is that first quarter when this happened. They swing it back up to Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown will then drive the basketball hard right once or left. He'll drive it right down the middle to suck in the defense. That'll kick it out there to the shooter in Marcus Smart, who swings it over to Derek White for a 3, right? That's their ball movement, and that's how they are effective at doing it, right? So that is how their half-court offense be able to be effective, because a lot of this was the same deal. But on ball screen action, it was just drive in, kick, right? It's hard to combat that. You get the defense scrambling. It's really difficult to do that. So that is the play there that I'm talking about. In terms of the last play here, we have the Heat offense to combat it. Okay, so looking at my screen a little bit here. So what I think you can combat it is you move the guy through here, pass the ball in. So I say this is Jimmy Butler and like a Kevin Love or Caleb Martin on this side. So what you do, you swing it over to Max Strus, right? Then you set a screen because they're icing the ball screen, right? So you set a screen that way to allow Bam to pop to the middle. Strus comes off, and then here it goes. You pass it to Bam. Bam has his operation. Now what you do is you set a split screen down here. You have Butler roll in. You have Martin or Love pop. You have Butler get out of the way. And then if you don't have it, if Bam has nothing before I go on the ball, they pass it. But Bam has nothing when Butler clears out. Can't drive, can't do anything. But what you do then, again, is you throw it up to the point guard and you go set another ball screen, right? And then you space the court. So you have constant ball movement. So again, this is going to be like all simultaneous actions, right? You have moving this direction here and being able to do that, right? So that allows that action to work, right? See how that's split? Then he can hit the back door there. He can hit the 4 on the pop if he has to, right? And then if not, you space the court out. You see if Bam has anything, then he swings it back behind you, and you go right into a ball screen action. You space the court, right? That could be a way to combat it. So what does that ultimately mean? So again, at the end of the day, right, what those is just showing a design is just a way to combat and defend, be able to actively adjust against what Boston's doing defensively for their physicality. It's ball movement, it's player movement, right? And so I think a lot of times allowing the middle will be space for Bam Adebayo. I think that's a big way to do it. I think what unfortunately happened last night is they had them playing too much in a crowd. Ways you beat that, you have to have good off-ball movement. You got to hit threes, but you got to put the guys in the right spots, right? You can't have Jimmy Butler at the top of the key when Bam has in the post. I think you have to have Jimmy Butler on the opposite side so he can cut through, or when you swing it, then he can post up, right? Or he can get the ball in the mid post, right? So those are different ways to, I think, combat it. And also what this also showed is how Boston's been able to be effective the last couple of games and make this a 3-2 series and have all the momentum. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for tuning in as always. I'm Mike Schretter, and have a good rest of your day. And I'll be back next week. See you guys then.